92% of the wealth is in fixed deposits. Let's do a portfolio review. Well, I come across with a lot of investors. They are conservative investors, and not to blame them, but as an Indian, we have always been very, very conservative. For example, if you look at the globe, entire globe, for example, you look at some of the developed economies like US, there is a ratio called debt to GDP ratio, and the debt to GDP ratio in the US is as high as 250%, and China it is about 200%, whereas in India debt to GDP ratio is less than 100%. In the sense that broadly as an Indian we don't prefer to leverage or prefer to take undue leverages in our life, and therefore I come across with a lot of investors whose portfolio is overall invested more than 90% in fixed deposits or bonds which are offering you 8% kind of yield, or maybe fixed income mutual funds where you get about 7.5% returns consistently, or maybe some of them put money in arbitrage funds of equities where they get about 6.5-7% returns. Nothing wrong in that. I mean, as long as you are happy, okay with this kind of returns, I would suggest that you may continue. But if you are someone who is looking at growing the funds, because in this case you are actually degrowing your funds, in the sense that generally if you look at last 20 years of data points or 30 years of data points as far as inflation in India is concerned, historically it is about 5.5-6%, and what you get in the fixed deposit is about 7%. But when you deduct the taxes, your post-tax returns are in the tune of 4.2 to 4.3%. So on the one hand you are making about 4% returns, on the other hand you have inflation which is more than your returns. So in a way you are actually eroding your wealth not creating your wealth. But if you are someone who wants to grow the assets, grow the overall portfolio, then I think you might have to change your and revisit your portfolio. I won't say that you have to come to aggressive equity funds, etc. No, but there is a category called balance advantage fund on the mutual fund side, or there is this category called multi-asset funds where you have close to 30% exposure to equities, close to 30% exposure to gold or silver, or maybe remaining 25-30% of arbitrage or a liquid fund, which will give you about 7.5%. Even if you make these kind of portfolio, then you compare this with last 10 years, 20 years of data point, historically these funds have ended up delivering close to 15% returns in the last decade or so. So if you are someone who is conservative and yet wants to beat the inflation, then there are ways of riding these investments through alternative investment funds also. For example, in alternative investment funds, there is this category called category 2 private credit fund. Now private credit fund is growing very fast in India. The size of the industry is now crossed more than 1 lakh crores, and they are the main investors who were investing in fixed deposits earlier, and they were also investing in fixed income mutual funds. Now when you look at the country as a country, the total size of fixed deposits in India is more than 3 times of what the total size of our mutual fund industry is. So that clearly indicates that we as an investors are very, very conservative. But at the same time, what we need to examine in the light of cool period is the rate of inflation. So if you are someone who wants to continue to get about double-digit returns, then you need to think about private credit funds. So private credit fund gives you double-digit returns post fees and post expenses and post taxes. So post taxes, if you make about 10%, I would say to my mind it's a great number. And when you compare this with some of the equity funds, your volatility in the fund is almost negligible if you go for private credit. The only thing is, in private credit, the minimum threshold for investment as per SEBI rule is 1 crore. So if you are someone whose portfolio size is more than 5 crores, 10 crores, then you can clearly look at that as one of the options. I would like to take your leave. So thank you so much for giving me a patient hearing. My name is Vikas Agarwal and I'm the founder of Altport. We are basically experts in alternates and we are based out of Bombay. Thank you.